Major breaking news from the NBA. The Knicks firing head coach Tom Thibodeau after 5 seasons, according to ESPN. Led the Knicks to back-to-back Eastern Conference runs this season, making it to the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time in 25 years before losing to the Pacers in 6 games. Under Tibbs, New York won 50 games in each of the past 2 seasons for the first time since the 90s. Despite that regular season success, the Knicks will now enter the offseason in search of a new coach. Let's get John Gonzalez in here from Beyond the Arc podcast. John, I know this is kind of, depending on who you ask, surprising or needed. Where do you stand on your reaction to this?
Yeah, it's both surprising and not, right? I mean, you could really have picked any avenue here. Tom Thibodeau, every year under Tom Thibodeau, the Knicks improved, right? They won 50 games in back-to-back seasons for the first time in forever. They made their first Eastern Conference Finals for the first time in 25 years. They get out of that first-round series against the Pistons, a little squirrely. They end up playing the Boston Celtics, the defending champions. They vanquished them. Yes, Jason Tatum went down, but they were dancing in the streets. New Yorkers felt great. It was bing-bong all over the place, and they thought that they were on a glide path to the NBA Finals. Well, they overlooked the Pacers, and I think that's probably why Tom Thibodeau is going, along with the fact that we all know that Tibbs has his, let's say, shortcomings. He tends to be a little particular about the way that he plays his guys, right? He loves to run 5 guys out there for as many minutes as he can squeeze out of them, and he's very reluctant to use his bench. And in that Pacers series, he was basically forced into going into his bench for the first time in quite some time, where normally he'll play 6, 7 guys. If he gets 8 guys out there, it's almost by accident. Well, against the Pacers in the last couple of games, he was running 9 guys out there, and it begged the question of, well, if you're doing this in the postseason, in the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time, why weren't you doing it more regularly? Why didn't that happen in previous seasons during the regular season, when clearly your guys had the Knicks were always at the forefront of minutes played during the regular season? By the time they got to the postseason, they looked a little drained. So I think the Knicks looked around and went, look, it's been fun. We wish you the best, but we need a coach who's willing to adapt on the fly. And despite the fact of what happened against the Pacers, I don't think Tom Thibodeau is that guy.
Is there a moment in that series you can point to in particular where you could say that moment right there may have cost him his job?
Well, there was a couple of things I thought. I thought that he got outcoached by Rick Carlisle. I didn't think that he used his challenges very well. There were multiple spots where Cat and Jalen Brunson got into foul trouble, and he was almost pressed into having to dip into his bench. But the big thing was when he decided to move Josh Hart to the bench and bring in Mitchell Robinson, that signaled what we knew all along, which was that 5-man starting unit that he favored of Jalen Brunson, OG, Bridges, Cat, and Josh Hart just wasn't good enough. In the postseason, that 5-man lineup was a -50 over 308 minutes. By far and away, the worst 5-man lineup in the postseason. And it took Tom Thibodeau until deep into that series to look around and acknowledge what everybody else knew, which was that lineup was getting cooked. So he ends up taking out Josh Hart, putting him into the bench, and moving in Mitchell Robinson. I don't know that that was necessarily the solve. Obviously, it didn't get them to the NBA Finals. But for Tibbs to take that long to make the adjustment, I think that that was really the underlying reason why he's gone.
When you make a move like this, got to think that you're in the front office in New York and you've got a list of names that you want to call and talk to about this huge opening. Who's at the top of your list for guys you believe the Knicks should talk to?
Well, I think that they're going to, I mean, there's any number of young coaches, assistants that you look around and say, okay, now all of a sudden maybe we should be giving this guy a shot. But if you're talking about like maybe some of the recycled coaches, Mike Budenholzer now free after being dismissed by the Phoenix Suns after 1 year. Frank Vogel's out there. There's any number of names where you're going to go, okay, Mike Brown, maybe you give a look to some of the older guys. But I'm in favor of finding a younger coach who's, maybe more adaptable, maybe willing to change things up on the fly. I mean, Tom Thibodeau, generally when you're going to make a coaching change, you want sort of the opposite of what you had. I like Tom Thibodeau. He's a really smart guy. He's a defensive-minded coach normally, although the Knicks defense wasn't that great this year. But he's really, really set in his ways. And I think you're going to want the opposite of that, somebody who's going to look at what the situation is and make the adjustment on the fly.
One of the most popular articles on CBSSports.com the last few weeks has been one that was just released today by Sam Quinn, suggesting that perhaps the Knicks go out, trade Cat for KD. Would you get behind that?
Yeah, that's something Sam and I have discussed on the Beyond the Arc podcast. It's interesting, right? Because Karl-Anthony Towns had his best offensive season probably of his career this year. He goes from Minnesota, where he made a conference finals, makes it to another conference finals in the East with a brand new team after being traded there with really like no headway. I mean, it was right before the season began. He didn't have a training camp. He was thrown into a new situation, and he acquitted himself really well on the offensive end. The defensive end was where it became a major problem for the Knicks, and that's a big reason why Sam and other people are wondering, would you already unplug Karl-Anthony Towns for somebody like KD? Certainly KD is better at both ends of the floor, the defensive end of the floor for sure. He's a little bit older though, right? And does he fit the timeline? But yeah, I understand why Sam brought that up. It's an interesting idea. And also from the Suns' perspective, Devin Booker, Karl-Anthony Towns, they played together in college. They had the famous interview where they said, one day we will play together in the pros. So yeah, it's something that they have to at least consider.
The Knicks tweeting out, thank you, Tom Thibodeau, making it official that his career with the New York Knicks is now over. John Gonzalez with us here on HQ. As we look at the updated carousel now, we see 4 teams have already hired new head coaches. The Suns and Knicks, who could potentially hook up for a trade, both looking for new head coaches now. And more still to come on the big news out of Madison Square Garden, where the Knicks have fired Tom Thibodeau after leading the Knicks to their first Eastern Conference Finals in a generation. We begin this hour with breaking news from the NBA. I'm Chris Hassel. That's Amanda Guerra. We had Ashley Nicole Moss on this set last week. While the Knicks were still very much alive, lifelong Knicks fan, she said Tom Thibodeau has to go. Today, the Knicks made that official.
Yeah, both her and Brad Botkin were saying in those final couple of games for the Knicks, he needed to be more creative. He needed to use his bench a little bit more. Did that once or twice, but clearly not enough. And as Chris said, the Knicks putting out a press release on social media today confirming that they are getting rid of their head coach. Tom Thibodeau there led the Knicks to back-to-back Eastern Conference Finals this season for the first time since 2000 before losing to the Pacers in 6 games under Tibbs. New York won 50 games in each of the past 2 seasons for the first time since the 1990s. So let's bring in NBA champ Rip Hamilton there. You hear about all these good things about Tibbs. You see it there on paper, but then you have our experts and fans like Ashley saying he's got to go. What do you make of the firing?
Amanda, it's a sad day in New York, but I knew something like this would probably happen. And the reason why is because you look at the history of Tibbs. I remember having him in Chicago as a Chicago Bull, getting us all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals, right? And just couldn't get over the hump. And a lot of that was because of his in-game adjustments, which a lot of people in the NBA feels though that he couldn't do. He couldn't provide that. He was a coach that kind of showed you everything in the regular season. And when you look at some of the great coaches that's in the league, especially a guy that he went up against was Rick Carlisle. He made all the proper adjustments in that series to get him over the hump. I think when the New York Knicks hired Tibbs, they hired him to bring them a identity, which the Knicks didn't have an identity. Brought toughness in that locker room, and when you got a bunch of young players on your team that's still trying to figure out the NBA system, understand who they are, Tibbs can be a great guy for that. But when you're talking about winning a championship and you're in New York City and they don't care if you become the 4th best team or the 3rd best team, they want to be the best team. So they don't care that, hey, they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals the first time since 2000. They want to win it all. And when you look at this team and knowing that they got a star player in Jalen Brunson and they got some really good pieces around them, the thing that worries them the most is Tibbs going to wear him down like he did Derrick Rose? Is he going to wear Karl-Anthony Towns down the same way he did Joakim Noah and Luol Deng? So these were a lot of the questions in the air for this team to get over the hump. So I think this is why they made that decision.
Let me ask you, Rip, since so much of the issues that it seems that people have with Tibbs or had with Tibbs was those in-game adjustments, you know, relying on his starters too much, and then they dried up, not going to your bench enough, not putting that creativity. You have to assume he is hearing this. What was keeping him from making those adjustments? Is it just a belief in his coaching style that he had the right decision? He felt uncomfortable with his bench? What do you think was keeping him from hitting that next level?
Well, Amanda, being in a lot of locker rooms and being around a lot of great coaches, a lot of coaches are very stubborn. They're stubborn in their beliefs, and they're stubborn when making them type of adjustments. When you look at Tibbs and the style he's been playing the same style since he was coaching the Chicago Bulls. He did the same thing in Minnesota. And even when he was in Minnesota and got fired and let go there, a lot of people in the industry in the NBA didn't think he was going to get another job. But the relationship that he has with Leon Rose, and he always talked about wanting to come back to New York, doing a stint there as an assistant coach under Van Gundy. They believed that the one thing that they needed more than anything was setting a culture. They didn't have a culture in New York. They were still trying to figure out an identity, and Tibbs could do that for them. So I think now that they have the right pieces to get them to where they need to get to, which is the Eastern Conference Finals, but that's not good enough for them. They want to win a world championship. They know that they got to go out and find the right guy to get them there.
Okay, so if you were picking out there and you talked about, look, he put the culture there, that's something great that he left behind. They have the right pieces there. We saw those pieces come together. What sort of coach, either a name or just a personality, would you like to see come into this Knicks locker room?
Amanda, when I look at this roster, right, and what do we always say, especially the last 2 years? This is a Villanova team, right? Mm-hmm. So if you got your best players being from the University of Villanova, why not go out and get Jay Wright? I think Jay Wright will be the right piece for this New York Knicks team. He got out of college basketball just because the whole NIL and the collective and all the money that's been thrown around. And Jay Wright is the type of coach that wants to develop. You know, he takes pride of being in the gym and developing players. So if I had to say the hire out there would be for me, would be him. He knows Jalen Brunson. He knows Josh Hart. He knows the Mikal Bridges. Them three guys are a big part of your centerpiece. Then you got guys like Karl Anthony Towns that still can get better. The one thing about Tibbs I want to point out, too, is also he's more of a defensive-minded coach. And I seen that when I was in Chicago. Like, he wouldn't always play Carlos Boozer, but he will always play Taj Gibson because Taj Gibson was looked at as a better defender. But Carlos Boozer was a way more skilled player than that. And if you watch the Knicks this year, sometimes he would go back and forth for when to play Karl Anthony Towns because he knew that how much the Knicks needed him on the offensive end, but was lacking a lot of things on the defense end. When you hire a guy like Jay Wright, he understands what it takes to win big games. He showcased that in college basketball, and I feel as though the transition will be smooth, especially when you got one of the better leaders in the game, and Jalen Brunson, a guy that he's very familiar with.
Jay Wright, a phenomenal person on and off the court, obviously a colleague of us here at CBS Sports. We would be very sad to lose him, but it would be very cool to go on and watch him coach. For the guy who does come in, are there enough pieces there? Because things have been floated out like, you know, trading Cat, trying to bring in KD or something like that. If you can get the right guy, someone like a Jay Wright to come in, are you making any big changes to this team, or are you cool with where they are right now?
I think you have to. You got to make roster adjustment. And it showed in the Indiana series. I just believe that they just didn't have enough. And it showed that, especially when you watch Indiana, where they was able to go 6, 7, 8, 9 deep on their roster. I believe that Jalen Brunson still needs help. If I'm the New York Knicks, I try to go out there and get a guy named Devin Booker, a guy that can create more for your offense, and now doesn't allow Jalen Brunson to be the primarily and the secondary and the third option on this team. It gives you another guy that you can start the offense with and don't have to wear Jalen Brunson down on the offensive end. Another guy is Giannis Antetokounmpo. I mean, you hear all the rumblings in Milwaukee. I just believe that when you're looking at the New York market, you have to bring in another star, another guy that can take pressure off your main guy.
Let me ask you this. Let's go back to Tom Thibodeau now, because you talked about after the Timberwolves, people were wondering, could he get a job somewhere now going into this Knicks? And you mentioned some coaches are very hard-headed, and maybe we've seen that with him. Where does he go? Does he take some time off, maybe make some mental adjustments? Do you think another team out there is looking to hire him?
Well, Tom he's a gym rat, so I don't think that time away from the game does him any good. Most coaches, once something like this happens, what do? They come to TV. But he's not a very vocal guy. He doesn't like to talk a whole lot. But I think that this is something that he'll probably sit around, take a couple months off. But I do see him back in the NBA. Do I see him back in the NBA as a head coach? Probably not right away, but I do think that he can definitely be on somebody's bench as an assistant.
Rip Hamilton, we appreciate it. Enjoy the NBA Finals coming up. I hate that we've had to wait this long in order to get those games. We'll talk to you soon and later specifically about the Finals. But again, Tom Thibodeau no longer the head coach of the New York Knicks. Chris, what do you think about Jay Wright taking over that job?
I think it would be sexy, but I don't think he's going to do it.
You think he's done? I
think he loves it here at CBS. It's too good to leave. For the Knicks, you kidding me? That pressure cooker? No way.
The coaching carousel rolls on in the NBA.